Today, we're going to talk about how you can use the system and the legislation to your advantage, how you could be the Fed and do very, very well in the next few years. So many of you know that I study Buckminster Fuller. He has incredible wisdom that is more important today than it even was back then when he was teaching. One of the things I completely agree with is that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. A lot of people do this in life and in business. They try to fight the system, but what he teaches is that you work with the forces and then the system works for you. So specifically today, we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve and what it's doing and how you can make it work for you. So there's three questions I want you to ask yourself. The first one, what is the existing reality of the Federal Reserve? Two, what can I do as an investor and in the future? And three, how can I be the Fed? So let's tackle the first thing. What is the existing reality? The Fed is not federal. So the Federal Reserve is not federal. We're going to go into that in a minute. For those of you who don't believe me, just Google it. It's actually a private corporation that's largely owned by all the biggest banks. Two, some people even call it a cartel because it actually regulates itself based on the rules and regulations that it itself set years ago. Three, it's in charge of bailouts and stimuluses, and all you got to do is go back and look at all the ones that have happened, including the most recent ones from the pandemic. Four, it sets the federal funds rate, which has a massive impact on interest rates, which we're experiencing right now. Five, it has a history of printing money, so adding more money supply into the system, which has created a lot of inflation, which is what we're experiencing right now. And six, it manages the unemployment, as we talked about in my video last week. So ironically, the Fed does not want too low of unemployment because that drives wages up, which creates more inflation. So this is the existing reality of the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation separate of the federal government. For you history buffs, you might know that the foundation of the Federal Reserve System was actually created at Jekyll Island, which is an island off of the coast of Georgia, by 6 men that were all associated with some of the biggest banks in the world. It's been said that these 6 men controlled over a quarter of the world's wealth at the time. So many of you know that we started the Collective, which is a mastermind with George Gammon and Jason Hartman. And we decided, wouldn't it be cool to actually rent the entire resort off the coast of Georgia and actually have a huge meeting inside the Federal Reserve conference room? This conference room is the very place where the foundation of the Federal Reserve System was actually created. What I'm really excited about is we have G. Edward Griffith, who wrote this book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. As you can see, it's still a bestseller over 20 years later. And the creature, of course, is the Federal Reserve Act itself, which was created in 1910 and later passed in 1913. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It's well documented and a great read. After I read this book, I changed my own perspective and started trying to be the Fed. So these are 4 principles that I started doing after I started reading this book. Number 1, buy assets that move with inflation. Now, this might seem rather obvious to a lot of you, but a lot of people still are buying assets that are declining in value over time. And there's plenty of assets that rise with inflation, of course, including real estate, but there's many, many others. Number 2, savers are losers. Now, this concept is, of course, in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it's quite simply this. If your savings rate is 2% and inflation is 6%, then you're going backwards 4% each and every year. Number 3, side hustles for extra money. This is something that I highly recommend because as some businesses go up, others go down, and you need to have multiple streams of income at all times. Lastly, fixed low-rate debt is very important as you're investing, but also as you take a look at everything you're doing, including credit card debt, because credit card debt goes up as the Federal Reserve increases their federal funds rate, which is putting people further and further behind. Specifically with real estate, if you're able to fix your debt, let's say at 3 1 year ago, as the Federal Reserve continues to raise their rates, it doesn't affect you because you're locked in at 3% over a year ago. So let's dive into these 4 solutions a little bit more. The top chart is from Chris Martenson from Peak Prosperity, and he is going to not only be at Limitless, but we've had him recently on our podcast. So pretty easy concept. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Tier 1 are hard assets. That can be water, it could be gold, it could be silver, it could be timber, it could be real estate. Those are hard assets, physical assets. Those are the most valuable in times of inflation. Number 2, you can invest in companies. So like Weyerhaeuser that harvests timber. It's better to be the owner of the timber than be the owner of the company that harvests the timber, because now you control the sale of the timber to the company. So third tier is paper. That would include things like stock or ETFs or electronic traded funds. Holding a piece of gold, physical gold, is better than actually holding the ETF paper gold, because you actually don't really have it. Of course, stocks are also paper because they're not the actual physical trees, because the trees are bought by the companies and then the shareholders own the stocks. This area here, number 3, is the first to go in any kind of crisis, that you always want to invest in these hard assets. Number 2 is the savings rate versus the inflation rate. Now, for all you math whizzes, this should not be too hard. Savings rates are around 2%. They used to be 1, but inflation rate is over 6. So if you have 10 grand in savings here and you're making 2%, you're making $200 in the bank, but you're actually losing over here $600 a year in purchasing power. So you're going backwards a negative $400 just by having money in savings. Now, a caution here, because everyone has to have a little bit of savings at all times for reserves, but hopefully you get the point where if all your money is in savings, you're going to be a little bit more at risk and you're going backwards negatively. Number 3 are side hustles. Some of you have seen the cash flow quadrant from Rich Dad. So this E stands for employee, the S stands for self-employed, B is business, and I is investment. In times of uncertainty, employees have the highest risk, because as employers get squeezed by inflation and high interest rates, they can easily cut overhead and labor to try to maximize their profits or even have a profit because of what's happening in the economy. So hopefully that never happens to you. And these side hustles will give you that safety net, that insurance policy that you might need if your employer is having headwinds moving forward into the next few years. 4th, eliminate all risky debt. I can't emphasize this enough. If you're sitting on 18 to 20% credit card debt, you're moving backwards. If you've got variable rate or adjustable rate debt on real estate, you're moving backwards. Your cash flows are going down each and every month, and this is something that you have to focus on. So as Buckminster Fuller likes to say, don't fight the forces, use them. The Federal Reserve is fighting inflation right now, and they're going to have a tough time moving forward. They're definitely going to use more bailouts like they've done in the past. The federal funds rate has increased 8 times, and it's looking like they're going to continue to raise rates to fight inflation. And lastly, the unemployment rate is very, very low. It's the lowest it's been in over 50 years. This is also a concern for the Federal Reserve, because low unemployment drives wages higher, which of course is inflationary. As Buckminster Fuller says, what is the existing reality? Don't fight the forces, use them. Because these things are going to happen over the next couple of years, and all you have to do is come up with strategies to be on the positive side of where this is all headed.